All right, it's Joe Bruin here with AllAccessEntertainment.com. We're here at Terrificon, Mohegan Sun, with Frank Kaz here, and you've been here all weekend. Why don't you tell us about this whole experience?
Well, the experience of a con in general is always people's nostalgia about going back in time to a more pleasant time. That's the way I see it, and that's what makes this such a special event, because you have so much of this at this event. I in particular sell old comic books, but old magazines, newspapers, anything that triggers an old nostalgic feeling in someone, I try to get. And of course, to get some money as well for doing it.
And what seem to be the best pieces as far as moving quickly and, high profile?
I'd say right now, because of movies many times, and that's what's happened today, is Spider-Man, for instance, is very big once again. A lot of movie and TV comic stuff is always popular from the 60s and the 70s. I sell TV guides as well, which people love because they remember a certain time and place where they were when they read these TV guides or this cover or whatever a particular event was in their life. And of course I have very cheap comic books for people who can't afford some of the more expensive ones.
Sure, a variety for everybody. And just rewinding for a bit, how did you first get involved with this whole Comic-Con world and collecting?
Well, I was a collector in the 70s when I was let's just say, around a teenager. And I collected from like around 1970 to about 1980, 81. And then I stopped. I was more interested in girls at that time than I was collecting comic books. But everything was in boxes, and I left it in my parents' house, in my old room. And I moved on to many other things in life. And about 25 or so years later, almost 30 years I should say later, I came back for a Easter visit to my mom and dad's, and my mom said, by the way, all those boxes of all that stuff, your dad moved down to the basement, there was a lot of them, into a closet. If you want them, you can have them, because he wants to use the old room. I said, oh, and I had forgotten about them in general, I just wasn't concerned. It was all this stuff, about 40 boxes of Silver Age and Golden Age comics that I had collected and amassed at that time, which amounted to about maybe 4,000 comics, 4,500 comics. And I was in the area again for a while, and I didn't know what to do with them, so I put them in storage. A few years later, it was 9/11. It was in New York City. My parents and I grew up in New York. And I decided to come back because my mom wasn't feeling well. She was getting more and more frail, and she needed help, and they were alone. And I was nostalgic to come back to New York. And I did come back, and I was working at the time in New York Airport. I was close enough to the city where I could visit quite often. Well, a few years later, the airlines decided to purge me out of a position, not just me, but thousands of other workers, when my company merged with another. Make a long story short, I finally got a job at a firm that worked with the city of New York. And what happened was, at the time, my mom got very ill. She went to the hospital and died. Pop was alone. He was starting to get dementia, Alzheimer's, and they were going to institutionalize him. Make a long story short again, I had to figure out, because I didn't want him institutional, I wanted him with me, so I went and purchased my old home, the place that Mom and Dad used to have, where I grew up in, because they had lost it to the bank, unfortunately, due to the fact that they had gotten mortgages at these banks in the 90s. Again, to make a long story short, I renovated one side, and I lived on one, and Pop lived on the other. But I couldn't just go to this 9-to-5 job every day and then not come back. And he was alone all day, especially on weekends. So I started to do these shows where I would sell off my stuff. And he would be sitting right there, if he was here, with me. And that's how I got back into it. And this was about a good 6 years ago when I finally got back into it. It's not, I'll say this, if anybody's considering on doing this, don't expect to live off of this. This is impossible to live off of unless you're a huge dealer. I'm not. I'm a relatively tiny dealer. This supplements my income, and anyone who lives in New York knows what I'm talking about. Even every little bit helps, because it's very expensive to live in New York. And that's what I'm doing to this day. Pop, unfortunately, passed away in December of 2014, and I still keep it going. as a supplement, at least for a few more years, until I'm able to amass enough time and money and retire, I guess, and stop. But it's always a fun hobby.
And I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Well, I was going to say this weekend is, in particular, Terrificon. How does that compare to some of the other cons that you've been to?
Well, Terrificon is run by a wonderful gentleman called Mitch Hallett, who is a very good person and a good friend. I've known him now for only a few years, but he is the dealer's friend. He is the merchant's friend, if you could even say that. He looks out for you. He gives me this wonderful spot. He was always very kind to me. He's not just here to make
DC
money.
picture now. We're going to do all cosplayers. Anyone who's in a costume that wants to be in this picture, come on up onto the stair.
But Mitch has always been a guy who looks out for the dealer, as opposed to some of these other cons, like New York or Boston. They're good cons, but they seem to have become lost in the haze of having huge companies and having, instead of little dealers who are just trying to eke out.
We're going to attempt to do an all cosplay picture as best as possible on the stairs. As best as possible.
Instead of trying to look after the dealers, they try to rent out to huge companies, and it's losing its small type of flavor, which was really, it's like a hometown. People come here, reminisce. Oh my God, I remember that Star Trek cover. I remember the Lucy show. I remember when men landed on the moon. I saw newspapers. And these are very affordable things. They're not like huge. I mean, there are these huge comic book companies who ask for hundreds and thousands. I don't have that kind of stuff. I have things that are like $20, $30, that kind of stuff. And obviously, it's worth my while to do this when I can. And I think, again, his Terrificon differentiates because of that reason, is that he still allows these kind of small dealers to survive and be at these cons, which is what they were originally intended to. They were like a community. Comic book people were a community. When I was a kid, I used to buy and sell at the Phil Suling Second Sunday Show in New York City. Anyone who knows about comic books knows he was the first guy. And unfortunately, he died of stomach cancer later on. But he was the original man who came up with this concept of having little comic conventions and guys buying and trading. We weren't out here to make money, really. And even to this day, you're not going to make much. You're not going to become a rich or wealthy person. You will supplement your income, you'll have fun, and you'll also meet other people who have like interests, which is always kind of fun in and of itself. So, I mean, that's what I take off from Terrificon. It still has that old flavor of the old cons, which I like.
Well, Frank Kaz, I appreciate you taking the time today at Terrificon, and best of luck throughout the weekend. And in closing, can fans find you at any online or any upcoming shows?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be in Rhode Island, hopefully, God willing. We all don't know where we're going to be in this world. Every day, hopefully, when we get up, we're healthy and we're happy. And if I'm healthy and happy, I will be at Rhode Island. That will be my next show, at least in this region. Further on, I do Chiller once a year. I do Super Mega Fest, which is run by my friend over here, Kenny, behind me. And that's about it till the end of the year. I'm busy with other things as well. I have to maintain my house. Otherwise, all this will be for naught. You need a house and you need shelter.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you at Rhode Island Comic Con.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.